Hey guys, and thanks for stopping in today. So if you're interested in getting our daily free pick, you can head on over to our main site, stumpthespread.com, and you can do that by clicking this logo here in the top right-hand corner of the video, and we'll also link Stump the Spread in the video description if you can't access it that way. Yesterday, our free play winner came through yet again, and that marks 10 wins in the last 11 days with our daily free play, and yesterday it was Green Bay. Easily covering the spread on the road against Oakland as they went on to win that game straight up as fairly significant underdogs. And we got another free play up there for today's action. So this is going to be for Saturday, January 28th, 2017. I'm going to touch on, I got listed here about 14 games that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to try to get through these matchups a little bit quicker than normal, so this video isn't too long. If you're interested in what games I'm going to be discussing, I will also put a list of those in the video description. And if you're interested in getting more of this pick content in the future, you can click that subscribe button. And also if you can click the thumbs up, that's greatly appreciated and really helps us out. So the first game that I want to talk about for today's action is going to be between Florida State and Syracuse. So we kind of expected Florida State to come out a little bit sluggish in their last outing on the road against Georgia Tech. Florida State was coming off two big resume building wins, and then they had to go out on the road. That just had all the makings of a potential upset, and even we didn't expect Florida State to play like they did. They went on to get blown out by Georgia Tech, but that could be a wake-up call for this group here. They're going on the road again against a Syracuse squad. The Orange, haven't necessarily been able to find all that great of footing in the ACC. They've been a little bit up and down with their play and been less consistent than you'd like to see. The Orange, they really rely quite a bit on their zone defense, as on the offensive side of the ball, they just haven't been able to put up those consistent high efficiency games. The transfer Andrew White has been leading this offense for Syracuse, but Syracuse, they made that surprise run to the Final Four last year, but this is a group that really had to reload their roster in the offseason. They're not quite even close to the point where that group was last March. But anyways, this Florida State squad, one of the more talented teams in the ACC, and they have shown that they can get the job done on the road. For instance, their win on the road against Virginia was one of the best wins of the year for the Seminoles. We do think that Florida State got a wake-up call in their last outing against Georgia Tech, and they're going to come out with a little bit more fire in this one. And even in the tough road atmosphere, we do like the Seminoles to go on and cover this spread. All right, the next game that I want to touch on is going to be over in the American Athletic Conference between Central Florida and Tulsa. UCF has one of the best defenses in the nation, but part of that also has to do with the pace at which UCF plays, but that's not to discredit their defense, which has been pretty spectacular this year. Unfortunately for the Knights, they are coming off back-to-back really close defeats against Memphis and SMU, and now the Knights are going out on the road to play against a Tulsa team that's been pretty steady on their home court this year. Tulsa was actually rallying off quite a number of wins in a row in conference prior to their last outing, where they fell by 3 points on the road against East Carolina. Obviously not a great result there for Tulsa, but the Golden Hurricane are coming back home for this one, and Tulsa's been consistently getting the job done on their home court. They're getting a UCF squad that's a little bit disappointed here, coming off recent defeats that they really couldn't afford to win if they wanted to get back in that NCAA bubble conversation. So we do feel like Tulsa, behind their solid home court advantage, is going to go on to win and cover this spread today. Kansas versus Tennessee matchup here in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. This is a Kansas State squad that's actually really shown some very impressive results on the road in the Big 12, even in losing efforts like their 2-point loss, for instance, at Kansas, or the other day, Kansas State looked dead in the water on the road against Iowa State, but they still pushed that one right to the end and were nearly able to get the full comeback and get the win, but that was also just a very close defeat there for Kansas State. They're going on the road again today. The Wildcats are hoping that this is a little bit more manageable of an opponent. This is a Tennessee group that's still pretty young and developing. This Kansas State squad is really in desperate needs of going on a win streak here to bolster their resume to try to make a run at the NCAA tournament. We do feel like the Wildcats are going to perform well today, and they're just a really tough team, and we think this young Tennessee squad could have, a hard time breaking through that Kansas State defense on a consistent basis. So we do feel like K-State getting the 1 point here is going to be a pretty solid value bet against the spread. Another Big 12 SEC matchup here between Florida and Oklahoma. So Florida, they lost in back-to-back games recently, but in their last outing, the Gators were able to get things back on track as they went on to blow out LSU on the road. This is a Florida group that, you don't hear all that much about this year. They're, they maybe don't necessarily have the most elite scoring options, but this is a group that can really spread the ball around to a number of different guys, and they really focus on the team as a whole and a bunch of guys getting their points to have success. And then you have this Oklahoma team who's, they had a lot of success last year. They lost a major chunk of their production in the offseason, so everyone was expecting the Sooners to take a step back this year. That's been the case. Oklahoma has looked a little bit better, actually a lot better as of late with Jordan Woodard. Since he came back into the lineup, Oklahoma has been more competitive, and the Sooners do have a pretty solid home court advantage, but Florida has shown that they can get the job done on the road this year, and in a game that really means more to Florida than Oklahoma as the Gators try to keep their overall resume in good standing. We do like the Gators to come through and get the job done as they go on to cover this very small spread. Scrolling on down here between Loyola Chicago and Indiana State in the Missouri Valley Conference. Indiana State, when they're playing at their best, they've shown really well, but more specifically back during the non-conference, Indiana State had some great results. For instance, their win at home against Butler and also their 2-point loss against Iowa State on a neutral site were some really solid results and have really shown that the Sycamores can compete with quality opposition. Unfortunately for Indiana State, they have taken a step back here in the month of January in conference play as they now sit in the basement of the MVC. We feel like Indiana State's a lot better than their overall record would suggest. And Loyola Chicago, they were a big disappointment last year, but this year they came in with more tempered expectations and really getting overlooked, and this group has actually been performing pretty well with those lower expectations. We do expect this to be a pretty competitive matchup, but getting Indiana State at home as an underdog here, we feel like taking the points with the Sycamores is going to be a pretty solid value bet in this particular matchup. All right, just want to touch on this game real quick between Duke and Wake Forest. You can see Duke has increased the spread here from -1 to -4. This Wake Forest squad has shown that they can compete well against some of the better teams in the ACC. It's just Wake Forest has been a little less consistent with their results than you need from a team that's trying to make a run to the NCAA tournament. It's pretty much a make-or-break situation for Wake Forest as they try to pick up another great resume-building win here at home against Duke. The Blue Devils not living up to their preseason expectations. This was the clear-cut #1 team in the country coming into the year, but Duke's had to deal with some drama, suspensions, injuries, Coach K being out, a bunch of different things that have made the Blue Devils not put up the kind of results that everyone was expecting out of this group coming into the year. This is a game that means a lot to Wake Forest, and we do expect them to compete hard here and keep things competitive. Getting the 4 to 4.5 points on their home court, we feel like Wake Forest is going to be the better bet here. Nevada and New Mexico over in the Mountain West Conference. New Mexico has been looking a lot better as of late. This is a basketball program that used to be tremendous back when Steve Alford was over there, but ever since Alford left to UCLA, New Mexico has kind of been heading in the wrong direction as a program. This is a Lobo squad that really struggles with their consistency on both sides of the ball, specifically on the defensive end. But, like I said, they have been playing a lot better as of late, and they are looking like one of the bigger threats in the Mountain West right now. They're going on the road here against Nevada. And Nevada, they're coming off a tremendous result in their last outing. Nevada played with a lot of poise and guts on the road against Boise State in a really hostile environment. Nevada not only beat Boise State, but they really did in a rather convincing fashion. It was a very impressive result. A little bit surprising to see this spread shrink so much, but part of that does have to do with the fact that New Mexico has been playing a lot better as of late. If Nevada plays with the same kind of poise and confidence that they showed in their last outing against Boise State, we do feel like they're going to be able to come through here against the spread. Also, with the spread shifting quite significantly down, we feel like Nevada giving the 3.5 points is going to be the better bet here on their home court. All right, the next game that I want to talk about is the biggest matchup of the day. All right. So Kansas versus Kentucky is the headliner here in the Big 12 SEC matchup. Kansas has been pretty much the pinnacle of consistency this season. They racked off, it was something like 18 or 19 wins in a row before they fell on the road against West Virginia. That was a result that was to be expected there. Kansas came into that particular matchup as an underdog, and West Virginia, when they're on their home court with going against top opposition, their crowd really makes a difference, and that's just, we saw Baylor get blown out at West Virginia, so not a huge surprise there, but this is still a Kansas squad. They're, one of the top-ranked teams in the country for a reason, and it's because they have a lot of talent. They got a lot of veteran players. They got solid coaching, and they just know how to get things done, as we've seen in a number of their competitive matchups this year. They're going on the road here into obviously another tough environment, and the Kentucky Wildcats, a younger roster but much higher ceiling than Kansas when playing up to their highest level. We do feel like Kentucky does have a really good shot at picking up this win behind their home court advantage. But we do feel like Kansas getting the points is going to be the better value bet in this particular scenario. I remember earlier in the year there was a game, it was UCLA on the road against Kentucky, and UCLA came into that one as about 9.8 to 9-point underdogs, and we felt really strongly in that particular matchup with UCLA, just given they have a really high pedigree just like Kentucky, but a bit more experience, which can be a difference maker, and UCLA went on to win that one straight up on the road. We don't think Kansas will necessarily come through and get the win here, but getting the points in what should probably be a competitive matchup, we do feel like the Jayhawks are a pretty good bet in this matchup. All right, moving on again to the Mountain West. We have a matchup here between Boise State and Wyoming. Boise State has been pretty disappointing for us lately. This was a Broncos squad that was really stepping up their play and showing some very impressive things earlier on in conference. More recently on their home court, Boise State hasn't been looking all that great, losing some recent home games that we had picked them in particularly to cover the spread, and they went on to lose straight up and not looking, more specifically on the defensive side of the ball, as good as we've expected to see out of Boise State during the regular season. They're going on the road here against a Wyoming team that has really surpassed everyone's expectations this year. This is a Wyoming group that is really heading in the right direction under their current head coach. He's bringing in some talent, and this group has the ability to play at a fast pace and put up a lot of points on the board. Wyoming has a decent home court advantage, and we do like the Cowboys to utilize their home court as they go on to win this one and cover the spread against Boise State, who hasn't been looking quite as strong over the past couple weeks. All right, guys, I got 5 more games that I want to talk about in today's video, and we're going to move over to the MAC. We have a matchup here between Central Michigan and Kent State. Central Michigan, they haven't shown nearly as well on the road as they have at home in conference play, so, most people would say, why would you want to take Central Michigan in this scenario, given the fact that they haven't been performing as well on the road? We do realize that Central Michigan's been a lot better at home than on the road, but this is still a team that has an extremely high ceiling on the offensive side of the ball. They have the leading scoring backcourt in college basketball and the leading scorer overall, with Keene, who's averaging about 30 points per game, and then you also have Rayson, who's averaging about 20 points per game. And those guys, when they get hot, they just, make a situation where Central can rack up 90 to 100 points a game. We even saw Keene, eclipse the 50-point mark recently in one of their wins. Central Michigan is coming off back-to-back victories. Even though CMU is sitting right now in the lower half of the MAC West, this is a group that you can't count out come March to make one of those dark horse runs to the NCAA tournament. We feel like a lot of Central Michigan's issues comes when they're not making strong decisions on the offensive side of the ball and getting a little bit too hectic with their up-tempo offense. They're going on the road here against a Kent State squad that has been tough to gauge. They've been liable to losing on their home court, and they've been really up and down with some of their results. We feel like Central Michigan can keep things competitive here, and getting the 6 points, we feel like the chips of Central Michigan are going to be the better value bet in this game. All right, moving on down here. Big Ten matchup here between Ohio State and Iowa. So Ohio State, they've been in make or break mode. It seems like over the past 2 or 3 weeks, they've had some good results, some bad results. Going out on the road here into a tough environment at Iowa, this is going to be another tough battle here for the Buckeyes. Iowa's been really bad on the road at times in Big Ten play, but they've actually shown really well on their home court. For instance, they've picked up home wins against teams like Purdue and Michigan, and Iowa just plays with a lot more confidence and composure when they're behind their home crowd. Ohio State's been playing in a lot of competitive games as of late. That can be really draining on a team that's trying to fight for, their overall resume and RPI. The Buckeyes are going into a tough atmosphere here. We do feel like Iowa, behind their home crowd advantage, is going to come through and cover the spread today against the Buckeyes. Missouri State and Southern Illinois, a matchup over in the Missouri Valley Conference. The Bears, they're a team that's really frustrating to watch. They can, a number of times I've seen them pull out to huge first half wins, and then they go into this mode where they just try to stall out the game and play not lose, and that ends up costing them. I remember their game at Northern Illinois. They nearly blew that one. They nearly blew their game on the road against Indiana State. We saw it against Loyola, Chicago, where Missouri State had a big lead in that game. They went on to lose that one. And also, we saw this Missouri State go against Southern Illinois earlier in the year, and what was actually one of their games that they didn't even have one of those patented big leads that they blew against Southern Illinois, as they went on to just lose that one straight up by double figures. Southern Illinois really had a spark of solid play during the middle part of the month of January. They haven't been quite as solid as of late, but Southern Illinois really looked strong in their last outing against Missouri State just a few weeks back on the road, and this time they get their home court advantage. We do feel like Southern Illinois, behind their home court advantage here against a Bear squad that they know that they can beat, we do feel like them giving the 2.5 points here is going to be the better value play. And just 2 more games that I want to touch on. Ryder versus Niagara. Niagara, a team that's better than their overall record might suggest. They did come up just short for us recently, but this is a Niagara that has covered the spread in a number of recent games. Ryder, they got off to a really nice start in the MAAC, but they haven't had quite as good results here over the past couple weeks. Going on the road here, Ryder is going to run into a tough situation here. This is a Ryder group that, for instance, their game at St. Peter's not that long ago, they went on to have I believe a 14-point lead in the second half of that one, and then they went on to lose by 5 points. This is just a team that, they're not great at the free throw line, and that can really hurt them in some of these closer games. So we'll side with Niagara here to come through on their home court, getting the 1 point as a pretty solid value bet. And the last game that I want to touch on in today's video is going to be between Chattanooga and East Tennessee State. This is one of the more intriguing matchups of the day, and especially amongst the mid-majors. Chattanooga did not look themselves in the last outing. This is a strong veteran group, but they were really throttled at home by VMI. I suspect that Chattanooga might have been looking ahead on the schedule to this one on the road. Obviously, that's no excuse for a team to put up a stinker on your home court, but we'll see how Chattanooga is able to bounce back here on the road. They're going against an East Tennessee State squad. That's one of the more athletic teams among them in majors in college basketball, and if ETSU is able to make the NCAA tournament, they definitely have the kind of talent and just athletic ability to potentially be a surpriser and win a couple games if they're able to obviously make the big dance. ETSU, not an overwhelming home court advantage by any means. ETSU opened this one as quite a significant favorite, but it has shrunk a bit, and that's just people respecting the fact that this veteran Chattanooga squad coming into the year as the preseason favorite to win the SoCon should be able to keep things competitive in this particular matchup. We do feel like Chattanooga getting the 5 points on the road here against ETSU and what's probably going to be a very close game is going to be a pretty solid value bet in this matchup. So that wraps up the games that I wanted to touch on in today's video. Covered 14 games for Saturday's action and some of the leans that I have against the spread and some of these different matchups. Again, if you're interested in getting our daily free play over at our main site, you can head on over to stumpthespread.com by clicking in the logo on the top right-hand corner of this video if you're on desktop. We'll also link Stump the Spread in the video description. And if you're interested in getting more of this content in the future, you can click that subscribe button. And also, if you can thumbs up the video, it's greatly appreciated and really helps us out. So thanks, guys, for watching, and we'll see you in the next college basketball pick video. Bye.